You're here. Hey, I had something I wanted to talk to you about. You know that comment that you put in the Discord like a couple of months ago? Well, I looked into it and I think you're dead fucking wrong. Here, one second. I made a presentation. Here, come in. All right, come on, let's get you in place. Yep, there you go. Then I'll move me out of the way. Alrighty, let's get this party started. Here we go. So here's my presentation on why Nancy Pelosi is not trading stocks in Nvidia, not doing insider trading. And this is why you're completely wrong with your comment here. This is it. So you claim that Nancy Pelosi's husband purchased a sizable investment in Nvidia, then shortly after, the Department of Energy announced that they were buying a supercomputer from Nvidia, and Nancy knew about it before because she was on the board of Nvidia, the Department of Energy. You're not clear. Then Paul sold right after the announcement, and he made millions. Worst part of it is they don't even need to disclose their purchases for 30 days, so this was all said and done before anybody could even step in and stop them. So let's look into every single part of this and find out if any of it is true or if it's all completely false. First up, what supercomputer are we talking about? What trades did Pelosi make? When did she make them? How much money did they make? And what board or oversight committee is Nancy Pelosi even on? Let's start with the supercomputer question because it's a big one. There are 23 supercomputers owned by the United States Department of Energy across the entire United States, but luckily we don't have to search through this entire list because not all of them use NVIDIA. The ones that I've highlighted here in green are the only ones that use NVIDIA. Cool. Paul's first trade was June 3rd, 2021, so we can cut the list down a lot more by using that. Any announcements that happen after June 3rd, we don't have to worry about. So, what trades are we talking about? We're talking about these 6. Paul has traded Nvidia 9 times, but I'm only going to talk about these 6 because the 3 that come after this, he never sells out of. If he doesn't sell, he can't make millions, so it doesn't fit our narrative. So we're only talking about these. These are convenient because these are a closed loop. You can see here that he buys 4 times. He buys 50 call options, he buys 5,000 shares, he buys 50 more call options, he exercises his call options to buy 20,000 shares, and then he sells everything. He sells 25,000, and then he just sells these call options at the end. So everything here is self-contained. Don't confuse about the numbers. He buys 50 here, but he somehow exercises 200 here right after this announcement. Well, so not an announcement. He didn't announce that he was making these. Right after this, then Nvidia did a 1-4 split, so these 50 call options became 200 call options. This gives us this graph. We can see here he started back here June 3rd, 2021, and he sold. This is July 26, 2022. This means that we have a window where our announcement can happen, and it can't happen outside of this because he needs to buy before the announcement needs to happen, and then he needs to sell. I'm stopping it at this green line and not this green line because this green line represents $300,000 and this green line represents $5 million. So, first I did a Google search between this time and I wrote down every single supercomputer that I could find. A lot of these are disqualified because they don't use NVIDIA or they're not connected to the Department of Energy. Frontier, Aurora, and El Capitan are owned by the Department of Energy, but they don't use NVIDIA parts. Cambridge One is in the UK. Who gives a fuck about UK? EOS is NVIDIA's in-house. It's not owned by the Department of Energy. And the unnamed Facebook computer, again, is not owned by the Department of Energy. So we have this list: Polaris, Venado, Perlmutter, Kestrel, and Joule 3. These are the only 5 that are in contention for being in our highlighted yellow section here. So let's take it one at a time. Polaris is too early. It was first announced in October 2020. There were a bunch of articles about it, and in fact, if you do the same search that I did here, then the first thing that shows up is Polaris. There were 3 articles about it written on August 25th, but it was originally announced in October 2020. We'll go into more detail on that later. Perlmutter is the other one. That's another one that's too early. It just straight up was announced 2020 May. I think the article that pulls up whenever you do the Google search is it about it being installed or delivered or something like that. But we already knew we were getting Perlmutter far in advance. Venado is one that I thought it was going to be because Venado is huge. Venado is like 5th fastest in the world or something like that, and it had a huge announcement. We can see here, this is from the ISC, the International Supercomputing conference in 2022. It happened in Hamburg, Germany. This was a big conference because we had just had COVID, and this was the first one that they were able to do in person for like 2 years. So there was a whole bunch of people at this event. Nvidia was a platinum sponsor. They had a huge keynote, and in the middle of their 36-minute video, they have this to say about Venado.
The new system, which is being announced here at ISC, is the Venado system. which is be hosted at the Los Alamos National Library, built with our partners from Hewlett Packard.
So there you go. It's being announced. They say this was May 2022. So this fits our window pretty well. If we go back to our graph, this fits somewhere right before this little bump here. So I really thought this was going to be the one, but unfortunately, I looked into Vendato, and it was announced way, 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 way earlier than this. This was just the first time that Nvidia was talking about it. We knew that we were going to be putting a Grace Hopper system by April 12th, 2021. That's a couple of months before Paul's first purchase. So, womp womp. Joule 3 is actually too late. I talked about the 3 trades that Paul made after the 6 that we're looking at, and it happens right in the middle of these. This doesn't fit anything at all with part of our narrative. He buys, he waits like a year, Joule 3 is announced, and then he buys 20,000 more shares. This doesn't fit anything. He never sells, he never makes millions. He waits until after the announcement is already made in order to buy in. Just doesn't work at all. Too late. Let's talk about every other supercomputer just to make sure we don't miss anything, because I don't want to be accused of being a hack who doesn't look into other people's points of view. Summit and Sierra they did use Nvidia parts, but they're way too early. They were part of a massive contract back in 2014 where they got $325 million and they gave it to IBM, Nvidia, and Mellanox. So as we can see, Nvidia was in the supercomputer game since at least 2014, because these are still some of the fastest supercomputers on the planet. Theta is another big computer. It didn't always use NVIDIA parts, but whenever the coronavirus happened, then they got a bunch of money and they upgraded it with the NVIDIA A100s, and they were able to do some kind of coronavirus mapping project or something like that. It was exciting at the time. This delivery of A100s was also the inspiration to build Polaris, because Aurora was being built by Intel, and it got delayed because of COVID, and they decided to use the A100s that they got to build Theta, and they wanted to build Polaris because it would be a stepping stone to using computers like Aurora, so they built Polaris. Again, too early for all of these. Theta was originally built in 2016. It was upgraded in 2020, so neither of those numbers work. Polaris was way too early. Aurora was a very early project, so it's just too early. Outside of our window. Joule and Lassen are 2 other old computers, both completely installed and operational in 2018. You can't have an announcement in 2021 if you are operational in 2018. Too early. So that leaves us with Kestrel. Kestrel was announced in December 1st, 2021, right in the middle of our window, and it was installed in the National Renewable Energies Laboratory alongside 2 other supercomputers, Eagle and Peregrine. It's also named after a bird. It's named after a falcon. Kestrel is a pretty small computer. It's comparable to Polaris. It is a 4 petaflop system, and it's 85th fastest in the world. It was built by Hewlett Packard, and they use the Nvidia A100 Nexts. The A100 Next is like the next generation series of the A100s that they put in Theta, and the A100s they use to build Polaris. So, slow, tiny system, probably costs somewhere in the range of 30 million, maybe even less than that. As you can see here, happens right in the middle of our timeline here. So, this is it, right? It's Kestrel. Well, I've got some problems with it. First, Kestrel's very tiny. Like I said, probably under 35 million to make this. That's not going to move the needle on a company that's also made a $300 million machine and other top 5 fastest in the world, top 10 fastest in the world. You could literally pick almost any other supercomputer on this list, and you would have a stronger, faster, more expensive, more stock-moving computer than you have in Kestrel. So Kestrel is like the tiniest, shittiest computer. I have no idea why you would ever insider trade around Kestrel. 2, this is a massive fucking window, an entire fucking year to trade around Kestrel. He buys these options way, way before, 6 months, and then 6 months happen later, and then he sells out. It's literally like right in the middle of a year. So if you're insider trading, why do you not sell here? 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 I have another graph that goes into this, but there are so many places that he could have sold and made a massive profit, but instead he waits until he makes like the lowest profit possible. So, what's wrong with his original statement so far? Let's revisit our comment. It was not shortly before, it was 6 months before. The computer was not bought from Nvidia, it was bought from Cray, and then they buy the parts from Nvidia. He did not sell right after, and because this is so far apart, because this window is so wide, the 30 days thing is not even close to relevant. This is not hidden by the 30 days required by the Stock Act. Let's talk about Paul Pelosi's trading strategy. I'm not going to fully explain what an option is and do examples and everything like that, even though I have the slides for it. If you want, you can open up the PowerPoint yourself. I'm going to have it in the description, and then you can look through it yourself to figure out all this information. But I have it on good authority that you know something about the stock market, so you should already know this. An option lets you lock in a price. It has a strike price. That's the price that you lock in for your stock, and an expiration date. That's how far out. Paul is super weird because he does deep in the money leaps. Deep in the money means that your strike price is far below the stock price, and a leap means that you have a crazy long expiration date on it, a year or more. Paul uses these all the fucking time. You can see here I have a bunch of examples from Google and from Microsoft, and this is what he did to Nvidia. He bought 50 call options with a crazy low strike price of $400 and an expiration date a year in the future. This is a crazy low strike price because Nvidia was trading at $660. He's trading 250 below the strike price. So why in the world does he do this? It's because it's an extremely long-term, very conservative, very safe trading strategy. Whenever you're trading this deep in the money, these act essentially like stocks, but you don't have to pay stock price for them. You don't have to pay $668 in order to buy these call options. You probably have to pay around $300. So you get a huge discount, but you get to control 50 shares worth. So you're getting like paying like half price and you're controlling 50 shares. It's a fantastic way to use a small amount of capital to control a large amount of the market. That's why he does so many of these. And just from looking into it, he does this all the fucking time where he will put in a bunch of money and then, here, let me go back to this other graph because this is super interesting. He does this constantly where he'll set the expiration date far in the future and he will not do shit with the stock until it hits the expiration date. I wish I had more charts of this, but looking through the stock financial reports gives me brain cancer. So he sets the price, sets the expiration date way in the future. He does not give a fuck what's happening in the market. He doesn't care what's happening in the stock. He doesn't sell early. He doesn't call early. He just trades that shit whenever it hits here. He just trades that shit when it hits here. He does this all the time. He will only trade on the expiration date. I'm confident that whenever he set this up on Jewel, he's gonna sell these motherfuckers December 20th, 2024. There is no shot he is gonna sell these or do anything with them any earlier than that because he's been doing the same strategy for like the last like 30 years. So that leads us to Paul's sale. Anything above this blue line, he would have made money on, and he just doesn't do it. He just holds on to this shit. So why in the world does he do this? He actually loses money on both of these trades. You can see here that whenever he sold these 25,000 shares, he actually lost $300,000, and whenever he let these expire, whenever he sold to this option, it's too far below, he loses those too. So why in the world did he lose money? Well, according to Paul, it was because of controversy around him owning stocks, but not from supercomputers, from semiconductors. At the time, there was a big bill moving through Congress all about semiconductors, and he was getting some criticism, and his wife was getting some criticism about him owning so many shares in semiconductor company Nvidia. So rather than allow the misinformation to continue and allow this perception that he's insider trading, he sold at a loss whenever this criticism came. Because he very easily could have just held on. This was shares at this time that he had. He could have just held on to these shares, but instead he decided to vacate his entire position on Nvidia. And again, not for supercomputers, not for Kestrel, no mention of Aurora, Polaris, Frontier, anything like that. Semiconductors. That's what all these articles are talking about. So back to our comment here. We can take something else out. He did not make millions. He made no money. He actually lost money on the trade. So that brings me to Nancy Pelosi herself. So Nancy Pelosi, of course, is part of the legislative branch. She was Speaker of the House during the time that this took place. And Kestrel is a supercomputer in Golden, Colorado. Let's take a look here. You can see I made this graph of all the levels of separation between Nancy Pelosi and the supercomputer she supposedly had insider information about. My main point here is how in the world does someone from the House of Representatives have any fucking idea whatsoever what's going on in something this far removed? You've got to go through the executive branch under the Department of Energy, through the Office of the Secretary. The Department of Energy does about a million things, so you have to go to the Office of Science. The Office of Science is a million things. You have to go to their laboratories division. There are 16 laboratories across the entire United States. Every laboratory laboratory is usually run by a private company. This one is. It's managed by a private company. That means the day-to-day operations, the buying and selling, and even the construction of buildings and supercomputers is all managed by MRI Global and Battelle. And they also do a million things. They sell solar panels and all sorts of windmills, all sorts of other shit. So you'd have to go specifically to their computational science division. So how in the world does Nancy Pelosi know anything about this thing separated by like 17 levels from her? I even looked into what the House might actually get access to. So this is the budget justification for 2021 for the Department of Energy, and these are all the laboratories on that list. Look at all of these. There must be 100 fucking laboratories on this list. And so if I'm insider trading and I'm Nancy Pelosi, why am I not looking at Idaho? They got, look, these are all dollars and thousands. So look at this. They got a billion, almost $2 billion. The Los Alamos laboratory where Vendeo is, they did get 2 billion. They got 2.5 billion. Oak Ridge, they got a billion. Office of River Protection, they got a billion. We look at our lab that we're looking at here with Kestrel, they got a measly 200 million. That's all they're asking for. They only want 200 milli. And then, let's look at this. Maybe there's some more information specifically whenever you scroll down to the individual lab. I don't know. You tell me. Do you see anything on here about supercomputers, about Kestrel? Do you even see the word computer on here? I don't. I mean, my God, they're not even asking for any money in some of these nuclear energy programs, computer programs, cybersecurity. They're asking for 4 million. I mean, where in here do you see any information that would lead you to invest in Nvidia? I'm not seeing anything at all. Um, that brings me to another point. Remember, this, I keep on saying Department of Energy. This is not really the Department of Energy. Remember, this is managed by a private firm. This building, the National Energies Laboratory, this is managed by MRI Global and Battelle, and they're a company. They make money. They sell solar panels, they sell windmills, and only a fraction of their funding comes directly from the DOE. We can see here it's somewhere in the range of 150 million, and they make 780 million. So why would the DOE have some big interest in what they're doing with the money whenever they're not even giving them half of it? I mean, obviously they have some oversight. They own the building, but I mean, this is specifically why they dole out all this responsibility to these private companies, so they specifically do not have to get involved in the day-to-day operations, the building of buildings, so they don't have to manage 2 million fucking construction projects across the entire United States. And lastly, we know where this contract came from. The director of the project, Christian Munch, she gives an interview where she says that it was solicited by the lab on SAM. That's the government contract website, and the contract was taken up by Hewlett Packard. So if the lab is the one that's doing the contract, what does the DOE have to do with that? What does, what does the Office of Science have to do? What does the Department of Energy have to do? What does the Cabinet have to do? And most importantly, what in the world do the House of Representatives have to do? They don't individually approve every goddamn contract that goes on SAM. It's about 1,000 a day. So how in the world would anyone in the House even hear about this or care? There's so many bigger projects. There's so many other things going on. How would any from the House hear about this thing that's so far separated? And again, Hewlett Packard is the guy who took on the contract. They buy the parts from Nvidia later. Why would you invest in Nvidia? I don't see Nvidia on any of this. I don't even know if a supercomputer is being built based on these fucking government documents. Just to recap, here's all the organizations that might have a clue, and these are the ones that Nancy Pelosi isn't on. She's not part of the National Renewable Lab, she's not part of MRI, not part of Battelle, she's not on the Energy Advisory Board, she's not part of the Committee on Energy and Commerce, who don't oversee the DOE directly, but sometimes write regulation about them. She's not part of the Intergovernmental Affairs Office, which handle grants. She's not a part of the Appropriations Committee, which would approve these from the Department of Energy. So she's not even looking at these. So, I mean, what magical force does she have that allows her to know? The only organization I can see that she's a part of is Congress. She is, or was Speaker of the House, and she's a representative from California, and she's also on the board of the National Organization of Italian American Women. I looked into them, and they don't have anything to do with supercomputers. So, how does she know? Through what method does she possibly find the information that you're alleging? So that means that we can add one more thing that's wrong to your original comment. Nancy Pelosi is not and has never been on a board that would tell her about a supercomputer. And so, if this is what you were trying to say, if you were trying to say that Paul Pelosi purchased a bunch of Nvidia and then the Department of Energy announced they were buying a supercomputer, I agree with that completely. Very true. And there you go, you made it to the end of the video. So before I let you go, then I'll go ahead and conclude with my high-level thoughts about everything covered here. So one is, why are there no supercomputers in our range that even close to fit the level of budget that they would need to affect the stock price? Kestrel is too small. Why would you not make this about Venado or about um, Aurora or about Frontier or any of those others that would have been a hell of a lot more impactful to the stock price than Kestrel, which is the 85th fastest in the world. If Paul is insider trading, why does he pick the lowest possible revenue method of insider trading, where he actually loses $600,000, and why does he employ such a safe strategy? Why does he not set the strike price higher? Why does he not set the expiration price or expiration date sooner? There are so many better ways that he could be making money faster if he were insider trading. His trading strategy is far more indicative of just a very safe long-term strategy of just storing and saving money. How does Nancy Pelosi have any possible insight into the goings-on of some lab in Colorado? I just don't see any connection between her and the lab, other than just saying that they're both part of the government or connected to the government, which for me doesn't do it for me. So again, thank you for watching the video. I hope I've laid out all of my points in a clear, concise manner, and I look forward to making more of these videos. I look forward to seeing your response and finally getting that document out of you. I'm sure that I won't, but I look forward to seeing it if it comes out. Thank you.